Greetings, diners, and welcome to another edition of the Frostbite Falls Daily Rant here on the Doomstead Diner. This rant will be a double feature, updating on the refugee crisis and a look at the latest waffling by the Fed on monetary policy. I'll kick it off with the refugee crisis, which has continued to escalate through the 2 weeks since my last daily rant, which isn't so daily. The clowns in Brussels couldn't come to any agreement a couple of Mondays ago. Well, what else is new? So they put off any decision-making on this until October sometime, when they figure out how they will punish any country not accepting their diktats on how many they are supposed to take in. The numbers, supposedly, will be distributed out based on the size and wealth of the country. Since all the pigs and Eastern European nations have a net worth already below zero, you would think the number of new people they should take in is also zero, or even less than zero, since they also probably have net emigration of people wanting to head for Germany and Sweden too. However, you can be sure the Brussels sprouts will come up with a non-zero positive integer for everyone as a politically correct band-aid to this problem. In terms of who is willing to take in some, basically, far as I know, mainly Germany and Sweden have stepped up to the plate on this, and most everywhere else gives it the thumbs down. Even in Germany and Sweden, while the political leadership says one thing, Joe Sixpack on the street is saying another. There continues to be a huge backlash and rising right-wing xenophobic movement in many of the countries, seeking to maintain their ethnic purity and Christian demographic. The Hungarians, who are on the front lines, are particularly vocal about this. On that Christian versus Muslim issue, one of the responses you hear is, yeah, we'll take some, but only the Christian ones. Now, precisely how many of these refugees do you suspect are Christians coming out of places like Syria and Afghanistan? Yeah, they have some minority groups of Christians, but these populations are overwhelmingly Muslim. There are, of course, a couple of workarounds to this. One is for the incoming refugee to simply say he is a Christian. How do they prove what your religion is if you are an undocumented alien? On the other side, they could say, okay, we'll let you in if we can baptize you at the border. What refugee in his right mind would not take a dunk to get across the border and over to the promised land of Germany? Of course, it's really more about racial and ethnic purity than religion, and even more about economics than that. I'm sure even the Hungarians would take in a pitch-black Muslim from Nigeria if he sports a $1 million Swissy bank account in Zurich and is willing to pay some Hungarian entry taxes with it. However, while this early group of migrants does seem to have the 20 to 30,000 euros it takes to get yourself across all these borders to the land of the used-to-be free, I doubt many of them have much more than that. The transit countries have their own problems with the migration. The folks on the move don't want to stay in these places. They are pretty much as bad off as the places they came from. However, since they mostly can't overfly it because this takes a visa they can't get hold of, they have to go the overland route through these places, Serbia and Croatia mainly. Since the Hungarians are trying to close their borders, laying down razor wire and patrolling the border on horseback, this means you get a pileup of refugees in Croatia, as long as the Croatian southern border remains open. So, as you might expect, now the Croatians have closed their border also. Eventually, of course, this will lead to violence at all these border control areas. The razor wire barricades they are putting up are flimsy at best, and won't stand up to even a homemade IED. Border guards riding the fences will be targets. The truth, of course, once again, is that this is only the beginning, and even the proposed numbers the Brussels jokers are offering up are a drop in the bucket. 10,000 here, 20,000 there. There are going to be millions on the move as the climate and resource situation further deteriorates in many countries, and the migrants won't just be from MENA either. Already, there are migrants undertaking a long and hazardous journey from Bangladesh, trying to make it to North America by traversing South America on foot, with a huge business in human trafficking developing. A few more lucky ones may get out, but soon enough the realization will dawn on all that they too have resource problems, and more than razor wire will be used to keep out the oncoming hordes. Nobody will board any train still running without papers. Anyone caught without papers will be shot on sight. We're not there yet, but we're getting there pretty damn quick. Okay, now on to part 2 of the double feature, the latest in waffling from the Fed. For months now, the Fed has been jawboning the end of quantitative easing and trying to unwind the massive balance sheet it has accumulated over the last 7 years to get a more normal and less manipulated system going again. Like it was ever normal or not manipulated to begin with, which of course is a crock of shit, but not today's subject. All through this jawboning period, currency markets have been in turmoil. The price of oil tanked, stock markets all over the globe have been on a downhill giant slalom, and even the so-called recovery here in the FSA is demonstrably nonsense propaganda. China's market bubble popped. Commodity prices are in the basement, and even the vaunted economic engine of the Krauts has stalled, with the DAX plunging 20% and now in a bear market. So last week, the Fed made one of its always highly anticipated and priced-in forward guidance policy statements, and now are not only not going to raise their interest rates on the money they create out of thin air, they are talking about a negative interest rates. Since ZERP hasn't worked, let's try NERP. Well, NERP isn't solving any problems for the Swissies, who have been trying this game for a while. Further talk elsewhere around the financial blogosphere is about helicopter money. Brit prep school butt boy Ambrose Evans Pritchard is a big fan of this idea. The idea in this case is that instead of handing out free money to the too-big-to-fail banks, instead they will hand out the free money to Joe Sixpack himself to stimulate demand from the bottom up. Instead of trickle-down economics, in this topsy-turvy world of finance, trickle-up is the latest rage. Precisely how they will manage such a helicopter distribution is as of yet unclear. Since they also seem to be in favor of banning cash, they're probably not really going to drop FRNs from helicopters, although that certainly would be cinematic, if nothing else. So, okay, they decide to do it by dropping digibits into the account of every FSA citizen to go out and buy a new iPhone with. Does this include all the kids with college savings account too? Do you limit it to just people who paid taxes last year? What about the people who were unemployed? Say you limit it to just 100 million of the 300 million citizens and make the digibit deposit, say, $10,000. Less than that won't even make a dent here. Cost of this helicopter drop is a cool $1 trillion. Then, how about the fact that actually most dollars are held offshore? Why do Americans get the dollars to spend, but Greeks don't? What if instead of going out to buy $1 trillion in iPhones, the recipients of this windfall use it to pay down their debts? Student loans alone are more than $1 trillion. And then there are all those delinquent mortgages and credit cards. Then the money goes out of circulation and there's no increased consumption of iPhones. Obviously, such a gimmick would cause immediate price inflation, but the overall effect is short-lived, unless you go ahead and do the same thing next year, which starts getting you into that guaranteed national income idea. Anyhow, the whole idea is a complete non-starter. The powers that be are not going to hand out trillions in free money to Joe Sixpack. A $1,000 tax cut, maybe, but the effect of this would be marginal and again short-lived. Pitching out helicopter money won't increase the amount of resources available per capita. That's the underlying problem the Fed never addresses. There's complete denial up at the top that there even is a resource problem. The increasing impotence of the Fed and all the other central banks to make any difference other than to keep shifting wealth to the already rich is quite clear. They're certainly not going to do Robin Hood and steal from the rich to give to the poor either. The bottom line here is the monetary system is bound to crack, at which point everyone will be poor, resource poor. At that point, the refugee crisis will take on a whole new meaning. And that's all the doom. This time until next time, here on the Doomstead Diner.